Welcome to Business Coaching Secrets with Karl Bryan. If you want to attract new high-end coaching clients, fill live events, and build a wildly profitable coaching practice where business owners pay, stay, and refer, you've come to the right place. In this podcast, Karl provides his keys to the kingdom for finding and signing high-paying clients and building the coaching business of your dreams. Here we go.
Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Business Coaching Secrets. Your boy, Road Dog, here with the main man on the big hill, Mr. Big Shoots himself, Karl Bryan.
How you doing, buddy? What's happening, Road Dog? What's going on? Ready to have a big week?
What's the hardest slap shot you ever had timed?
Mine?
Yeah.
No, if there's any hockey players here, it'd be very disappointing, but it would have a high 7 or a low 8 at the front of it. But anybody who can really blast it can hit actually, maybe nowadays with the new composite sticks, I haven't done that in a long, long time. The guy with new composite sticks, I got to tell you guys, you could get kids out there probably beating the number that I just described. But yeah, haven't done that in a long time, Shoots. So I'm not sure, but it would disappoint the hockey players listening.
Well, because we always say big shoots, and I'm like, that's kind of almost, a bad story if you're only at that percentage. So.
Yeah, below average speed, below average shot, but I was good in the dressing room, Shoots. That's
also below average height, but that's okay. We love you anyways.
Yes, that's definitely that, unfortunately. All right, man, what's the scoop? Got any questions for me? What are we doing?
Yeah, this is above average answers is what we're about to receive here.
That's what we're going for? All right, I'll do my best. No promises.
I'm trying to, set the bar at a reasonable pace so we can blow everyone away. All right. Oh boy. I'm reading this first question, and I know exactly where you're going with this. So I'm just going to sit back, relax, and enjoy as I throw this out. Karl, should I put ICF in my email signature? Now, before you go there, can you explain for those people that may not know what ICF is? And I'll just
good. Okay, good point. It's ICF, International Coaching Federation. So that's a body like you become a coach. You're trying to figure, hey, I want to learn about coaching, which I think is a good idea, by the way. You should definitely do it. But so should you International Coaching Federation, right, is what that stands for? Just heavens no. Unless you really hate preeminence, right? Because it gives away your power. Like, who really cares if you're, the person who cares if you are, whatever you call it, accredited or certified by the ICF is you, right? So it's like, congratulations, you paid someone to say that you're good or qualified to do something. So that's my take. But by the way, I just tell you, if you get an email from Jay Abraham, Tony Robbins, maybe let's go Jeff Bezos, Warren Buffett, do you think that they've got, like, what do you think their signature looks like, right? Without getting it, I got to tell you that they're not telling you who qualified and signed a piece of paper. It's go here. It's like, whenever you're thinking about putting something, an email signature or like a marketing message, or even for your clients' websites, it's got to pass the quote unquote, I should hope so rule, right? So if it means service quality, dependability is what I'm getting at here. So if I go to your website and it talks, like, coaches are renowned for having transformational, right? Transform this, transform that, transformational. It's like, well, if you're a coach, like, there's a transformation that's like it's kind of like what do you call it? Like a chiropractor cracks your back, the dentist pulls your tooth. Well, as a coach, what you do is you transform things and people, right? So it's so I should hope so rule. You don't want it to be there because you want to stand out. You want to be different. You want to stand alone, not, play follow the leader. It's like everyone out there, they're promoting quote unquote funnels. When you put something funnels, really what you're doing is cementing, in my opinion, by the way, and feel free to disagree. But I think that you're just further cementing Russell Brunson's brand and his standing as, the main funnel guy, right? So, and by the way, there's no such thing as a funnel, which I think is relevant here. It's a series of cliffs, right? They opt in or they don't. They book a call or they don't. They buy or they don't. There is no such thing as a funnel, because if you understand a funnel, it's like, they kind of slide down into the cup or into, if it's a beer funnel, maybe it's your mouth, whatever. But you know what I mean? It's not a funnel. I want you to think of it as a series of cliffs, and you'd get, far better off. And there's also folks all over the place. Not only do they take a photo with their 2 Funnel Club award and the big, and if you know what that is, some of you know what that is and isn't, just picture like you're holding up a, like what is it, a big framed kind of record looking thing, which he did a bang up job, and I think they're amazing by virtue of the fact that everybody's taking photos with them. But like when you're taking a photo and you're putting on your Facebook profile, again, you're further cementing Russell Brunson as the guy. And those in the know, I don't know if you're cementing yourself as a big deal. And by the way, happy to be wrong. And in some instances I would be there, but as a general rule, should you put that in your email signature? And you're competing with Russell Brunson, and you definitely shouldn't. And I've seen that. It's like, high ticket, similar, right? Like high ticket is a bit better than low ticket, but recurring revenues is 1,000,000 times more important when building a business, right? So you come to me and say, hey, Karl, will this business idea work? My immediate question that I ask myself is, where is the recurring revenue? And if I don't see the recurring revenue, I'm going to say that's probably a business that doesn't work, right? So you get, you're talking about funnel, and I really think it's a cliff. Well, when you say high ticket, which is very popular, kind of language out there, if you go to your Facebook feed and you flip through it, you're, a marketing coach type person, you're going to see this in a sponsored ad or one of, your friends on Facebook talking about it. So high ticket is better than low ticket, but recurring revenue trumps high ticket by 1,000,000. But, the book, if I wrote a book, recurring revenue probably wouldn't sell very well because it's kind of boring. But high tickets got more of a sexy, delusional feel, like the 4-hour work week to it. So therefore, it's gonna beat it. But no, ICF. Another thing, putting your phone number in your signature. I don't know. You tell me. Get an email from Tony Robbins. Do you think his cell phone number is going to be in there? You know what I mean? I don't think so. Right. So again, thinking about that, you really want to have a strong message, something that has you stand above, the others, makes you different. Testimonials, like short, sharp testimonials, would be like a good example that talk about the results that people got as a result of working with you, would be a good idea to put into your signature. But putting ICF, look, my mail says you're promoting ICF, and the type of coaching clients that I think you really want to be getting, I think they see that and they're like, oh, okay, well, I think you're losing preeminence, so I'm going to leave it there. But that's my opinion, Road Dog. There you go. What do you think?
I share that opinion, my friend, because at the end of the day, 9 times out of 10, you get the accreditation to make yourself feel better, to give yourself confidence, right? Like that's all it is. So, how else you can get confident? Actually getting results for your clients. Turns out that builds confidence a lot.
Exactly. Road Dog, I've said this 1,000 times on different podcasts. But if you want to go, instead of getting accredited, which is totally fine, then I don't want to say that you shouldn't, because that's not what I'm saying. I think some people should, some people shouldn't. And it just depends on where you're at and the experience that you have. But if you want to really go and crush it as a business coach, get a pen, paper, quiet room, throw your phone in the lake for an hour and write down 50 ways that you would help, and then just enter the niche. And we go restaurant as an example. Just Google, if you want to know what my answer to that in the business coaching, just Google my name, Karl Bryan, restaurant case study. And you're going to see 2 emails that I wrote as part of my 1-day series. And you're going to see, like, basically, I don't know how many, but roughly 50 ways to help a restaurant. So before I got on the phone, this is what I would do. And what you will find is you'll be so enthusiastic and so pumped to start phoning restaurants as a result of that, if you show me a business coach with a lack of leads, I will show you a business coach with a lack of confidence. What Road Dog just said, go get results for your clients and suddenly you won't lack confidence. It's the same thing. So like, if you write down on this piece of paper some killer ways on how you're going to help the chiropractor, the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, the next day you're going to be so enthusiastic to make some phone calls, to connect with some people connect with some folks on, Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn, to reach out to folks that and say, do you know of a chiropractor? Do you know of a restaurant? Do you know of a bar? Do you know of a butcher, baker, candlestick maker, whatever you wrote down on that page, that could use a little bit of help because I really want to change somebody's existence. So agreed, Road Dog, comes down to results, man. But ICF, it's a no for me.
Okay, so now I'm going to ask you probably my favorite question ever asked on this podcast. And I'm not just saying that because I asked it, but because I asked it.
There we go.
Like it's every person that I've ever really learned from, it's always about like you go in looking for answers and all you get is more questions. But that's always the way that it is, right? You are living your life and running your business to the quality of the questions that you're asking. So over the weekend, I'm like, I wonder what Carl's question of the week is. So now to put it into a question, they say you are the level of the quality of your questions you ask yourself. So Carl, what's a question you've been asking yourself over the past week?
Oh, bingo, bango. Road Dog, agreed, man. Awesome question. And I think folks should really, no doubt there's some stuff that we say on this podcast and our, and on our training and whatnot that you kind of skip over. This isn't one that I would skip over. I'd really, get granular and ask yourself, what have I been asking? It's a really good question that the level of question that you're asking yourself wouldn't meet, the standard that you're looking to accomplish. And therefore, if you make this slight adjustment, I think it could be a bit of a shifter for you. But so for me, look, my mind is never far away from the software, and importantly, not our software, but the results for the coaches that work with us. And as a result, what they do is they use our software, right? So our success is predicated on the success of our clients. So that's where my mind is almost, constantly. When a coach starts with a new client, what are the fundamental areas of their business that must be built up? This is the kind of things I'm asking myself, right? Like, how does the business owner create a brick house over a straw hut, right? Again, I got a 7-year-old daughter. I read her that book all the time, The Three Little Pigs. So if we can help our coaches do that for their clients, we'll win big time. So just we're thinking pie over slice of pie. I think that, again, is very, very important. Remember Jake Burton, who died not too long ago? He wasn't too much worried about selling snowboards. He grew and effectively built the sport of snowboarding, and that's why he crushed it. And that's when he passed away. He was, I wrote an email about it, which got lots of positive feedback, by the way. So apparently it was a pretty good one, but it was just, that's, he was thinking about the pie, not the slice. Encourage you to kind of be thinking about that. And I think, like, as you're going to these questions, because I'm thinking about how to, again, I can answer for myself, but I want to make sure those listening, like, what level are you at? And, where is your current business? Like, that needs to be factored. Like, a new coach trying to get clients needs to be asking relevant questions rather than a huge one, versus a coach doing 500 grand should definitely be asking a bigger question, right? So just think, I always talk about the little red arrow, you are here. Okay. So if I go skiing and I'm at the top of the mountain and I've never been there before, and there's a big map, the most important part of that map, and if Road Dog's there, it's for him, and I'm there, it's for me. And if you're there, it's for you. It's the little red arrow that says you are here, right? Otherwise the map is completely useless to you. So thinking about that before you delve into what sort of questions are you going to be asking, right? And again, because the question is too big, it's kind of like, the answer is going to land you on another mountain, which sounds good and would, probably sell lots of books, but is it granular enough? Is the question actually going to get you there, right? So thinking big vision with little question to get you there, right? Or metaphor that, again, if you've listened to this podcast for any period of time, you've heard me reference, but it's like you're going surfing, right? Kelly Slater, world champion for, a decade or more. And then I am like a terrible surfer. We both need one thing to surf, and that is a wave. Got a big wave. I can actually look like I know what I'm doing. You give me a little piddly thing and I'm, riding over the top of it. Next thing you know, I'm swimming again and Kelly Slater's looking mad. The bottom line, though, is that the wave matters. And if Kelly Slater wants to win the world championship, he needs a good wave. Otherwise, again, there's only so much he can do on a small one. That is, I give you that as that's kind of where my mind is at the moment, right? Like I'm thinking about the economy, right? We're living in the middle of a pandemic, hopefully towards the end of the freaking thing, but who knows, right? And the economy ultimately affects everything as I look to build my own company. I look to build the software. I look to help our coaches get the results that they're looking for and their clients to get the results that, they're looking for. Again, thinking pie, the after effects of this virus and the stimulus, that as well. What does the world look like when this is gone? I'm absolutely asking myself that. It's not going to magically disappear, and mask and social distancing aren't just you're going to snap your finger, the vaccine's going to come in and everybody's going to get it, and that just goes, right? Like, we're in a recession right now. And a recession, by the way, and folks, the terminology, you've heard it, you know that we're probably in it, but like, it's basically defined by 2 consecutive quarters with decline GDP, right? So we're well and truly there. And for a matter of reference, a depression, which folks are asking, are we in a depression? And a depression is basically, it's different. It's depressed growth over an extended period of time. And that topic maybe for another day, and frankly, for somebody far more, qualified and smarter than I. But we have had depressed growth at about 2.5%, I think, for an extended period. So, this is not, you need to be looking at that, right? Like, and why? Like, that's the wave, right? Like, your clients, you've got to be directing traffic a little bit. And if you feel like, that stimulus is going to make a massive impact, and all of a sudden people are going to start, going to the movies and going to the restaurant and spending money, discretionary money like crazy again, that would be a very different, pie than the way that I think that people are still sitting on their wallets a little bit. Wonder where they're going to go. But bottom line, big vision with small questions are absolutely critical. And I think I want to go to a new coach should be asking themselves something to the effect of, how can I give as much value as possible to local business owners, right? Again, understanding the macro environment of the economy that I'm just talking about, but what is it? How would you be directing them? What problems do I see for myself and for my clients? These are the types of questions I'd be asking. Like a local business coach, if you decided that the local business owner needs to be educated because they're operating at a pretty small, on a granular level, they don't have an upsell, they don't have a downsell, they don't have a cross-sell, they don't have a proper upfront offer. And by the way, those are 4 of the 12 areas, the fundamentals that our software provides for a business owner that, creates a summary and a roadmap that they can then use, right? Well, if you believe that, and I personally do, well, then I'd be thinking about venues that you can get into. How can you get into a venue? How can you bring people in safely to get in and out of those venues, right? So they're not going to worry about, social distancing and that sort of thing. The way you do that is you get a decent sized room and have people separated. So you've only got, 10 people in the room and you have them separated. And then what kind of content could you provide them? What kind of partnerships could you help local business owners grow? Like getting the gym and the local tanning salon, or getting the personal trainer and the gym together, right? How could you do that? Like what specific businesses locally are not really available? Like what sort of services? Is there a lack of landscapers? Like where Road Dog and I live, there's a monster amount of construction going on, and it really hasn't been affected, by the pandemic. So I got to tell you that locally, if you speak to folks, there's a huge lack of services in and around construction. So if you moved here with a moving company right now, you'd be doing really well straight out of the gates, especially if you were a good operator, because where we live, it's a little bit socialist, and people like to, jump in the lake and surf and, or whatever they're doing their thing. Not the hardest working people in the world live around where Road Dog and I are. So if you move in here and you're fired up, and you've got a great painting company or a great moving company or a great construction company, you can get pretty far pretty quick. And that being said, it's going to take a lot of work, and it's not going to happen at the snap of a fingers. You need to go knock on some doors and whatnot. But these are the types of businesses that are not out there. So when I speak to a local family and the dad's worried about getting laid off and whatnot, and I think, second, third, fourth order consequences, I'm like, damn, why don't you think about starting a part-time business on the side in and around construction? And if that ever happens, you could just jack that up because people need these types of services, right? So again, it's a macro view with the granular kind of questions to, get the ball rolling. Most business coaches versus most coaches are thinking, how do I get a client, right? Like that, the reality, that is the low level question. And I would encourage you madly to improve that question. If you really, if you want to get 10 clients in a week, you got to ask a better question than that. Because if you ask a bad question, you get a bad answer. It's like Tony Robbins says, if you go to the world and you say, look, I need some money. Well, I could give you 50 cents. You got exactly what you asked for. Now get out of here. You accomplished what you wanted because you had a horrible goal or a horrible question. You actually got it, didn't realize it. And the problem was that you weren't thinking big enough effectively. You didn't have the right question in place. Right? Even today, I sent an email literally today about creation, which, by the way, if you haven't read it, you should have a look at it. But anyway, so it's about just creation. It's about creating things. And it's like what do you call them? The Golden Globes were on. And I was kind of thinking about, the types of people that are in movies. And Freddie Mercury created the name Queen. And then a bunch of really, really great songs that, quite frankly, his songs became anthems because he's that good at it. Like, think We Will Rock You. After almost every championship I ever won in hockey, we basically played that. We played that music. Well, they made a movie about the guy. If he doesn't create, there is no movie. Ray Kroc. I've often talked about the movie The Founder. I love it. I think business coaches should all watch it, and not watch it because it's super entertaining, which I think it is. But I think watching it to understand some business lessons, and there's plenty of them in there, different inflection points. But at the end of the day, so that Ray Kroc created a system that we now know as McDonald's. He didn't create McDonald's, but he did create the system that expanded McDonald's, made it into the mega billion-dollar company it is today. They made a movie about the guy, Steve Jobs. They created two about him. He created the iPhone. Like, if he only created Apple, I don't think that there is a movie about him. The iPhone is what went next level times 10. You probably have one in your phone. You're probably listening to me right now on it. And they made two movies about the guy, right? So again, they make movies about people who create things. What are you creating, right? Like, most coaches are just playing follow the leader. And like I said, asking themselves the question, how do I get a client? I created software that, in my opinion, is already shifting the business coaching industry. And I categorically guarantee it's going to in the future. And it's not like I'm resting on my laurels. We created this software and I'm like, golly gee willikers, we really did well. Like, as you're listening to this, I can tell you, as I'm speaking, for sure, we have 3 very well paid and legit 2 software engineers, by the way, but they're working on it right now, stepping it up. We're creating group coaching software as part of the software. And again, it comes from a question that I'm asking myself, right? Like, in fact, so we have coaches, like we've got 900 coaches, 24 countries as I speak, right? Well, we have coaches that are doing 250 to 500 grand, and they legitimately want to get to $1 million, right? Well, the question I ask myself is, how do I legitimately, not, platitudinal and I want to really sound overly intelligent, legitimately, how do I get there? Well, the answer is that one-to-one coaching is not going to do it, because you end up with a chokehold where you can only take on so many. 30 would be absolute max. It's closer to 20 one-to-one clients. And you need to have network effects working in your favor if you're going to get to $1 million. So there you go. But Road Dog, I agree. That's a really good question. I'm not sure what I really wanted to bring across there is that I want you to think pie versus slice. So you're asking yourself the bigger question, creating a bigger vision for yourself, like growing business coaching locally and really servicing some current needs that are there, but then getting granular. With, okay, well, the way that I'm going to get there and educate the local business owners, and I'm going to run local events. Well, then in order to run a local event, we got a pandemic going on. We can't just fill up rooms willy-nilly. I need to think about restrictions, but I wonder if I could use the pandemic in my favor, right? Like the marketing that we have for our coaches right now, the messaging that we have got, frankly, for, around the pandemic and the way you can get business owners on the phone. Frankly, it's just bloody killer. And it really, really works. So here's a question. How can I go about using the pandemic in my favor to fill a room with 10 business owners on a weekly basis, right? Like, ask yourself that question and see where you go. But anyways, Road Dog, so that's a great question. I agree. I hope that's one folks don't skip over. The quality of your questions, frankly, is the quality of your life. The quality of the questions will be the quality of your business. And really, maybe the quality of your questions will be the quality of your coaching clients' businesses. And as they succeed, you succeed. And there you go. So that's my answer, Shoots. What do you think?
Love it. I'd also ask, who do you need to become? Like, who do you need to be as a coach to be able to consistently bring in with ease 10 new client or 10 new prospects to a local event every single week, right?
Exactly.
Like, what kind of a level of coach you need to be at?
Yeah.
That's
like speaker, like Road Dog. If you go with my example earlier, like, because then somebody's listening, goes, "Oh my gosh, a room of 10 people, this freaks me out." Well, you know what? If you really care about them more than you do about yourself, you'll work it out. You'll find a way. But you're exactly right. Like, who do you need to become? What skills you need to acquire? Right? Like being a good marketing person. That, becoming an influencer. I encourage you to go away from that. That's the sexy, delusional stuff. Become a legit operator. That's where the game-changing magic comes from.
one of my favorite quotes of all time, buddy. Do you want to be popular or profitable?
Yeah, okay. There we go, bud. I love it. I love it.
It's like, stop chasing likes, because that's is that putting dollars in your bank account. But anyways, hey, you mentioned network effects again. And for any new listeners that we have, because we always get new listeners every week, and obviously we have new people inside of the pre-show game as well. Can you just quickly describe network effects in case, just for those people that aren't aware of what it is?
Yeah. Okay. Good point. Okay. So just a minute ago, I just said, okay, if you want to get to $1 million with your coaching company, how do I do it? I got to tell you, you're going to need you don't necessarily need network effects on Amazon level working in your favor, but you're going to need it in your favor. Real quick. And we've spoken about this. I'm sure if you go look through the podcast and you Google the podcast and then network effects, I think you're going to find that a couple will pop up where I've gone, in depth into it. But here it is in a nutshell. Network effects dictate that as you bring on new clients, it improves the experience for the existing clients, right? So you get network effects. An example real simple example that I use is, imagine a phone. Road Dog owns a phone and no one else owns a phone. It's useless. Road Dog has a phone and I've got a phone. It's great for both of us. It's like a walkie-talkie, but not super useful. Imagine now if everybody in the city, everybody in the state, everybody in the province, everybody in the country, everybody in the world had a phone. You see how the more people that have a phone, the more functional it becomes, the better it becomes for everybody. That's a real simple example of network effects. So with your coaching, you're going to need, in order to get the 7 figures and beyond, and it's one thing to get the 7 figures, it's a whole different, skill set to stay there. Okay. It's like making the NHL or making the NFL and then staying there. To ask anybody who's made it, believe me, it's a very different set of skills, much of which are social, right? Because again, believe me, guys who are not liked in the dressing room have a heck of a lot more difficult. Guys who are real team players have a significantly better chance of getting an extended run, right? What do they say? NFL, not for long. In fact, Lee Woodall, he's a legendary client of ours, been around for quite a while. Won a Super Bowl with the San Francisco 49ers, and a legend. Again, ask him; he'll absolutely tell you. But anyway, so network effects. So that's what it is. So if you think about Amazon, when you're really thinking network effects, I want to think, as you get bigger, you really start to expand. So the way that I teach it is a clock. Picture 12, 3, 6, and 9. Like Amazon at 12 o'clock would have selection. At 3 o'clock, customer experience. It might be, if you're listening to this on a pen and paper, it might be handy so that you can really, if you don't understand this, I want to encourage you to write this down. 12 is selection. 3 would be customer experience. Traffic would be 6 o'clock, and then more sellers become 9 o'clock. And then what happens is the more selection, the better the customer experience, the more often that you'll go. Like my daughter, she wants a specific type of doll, they call it American Girl doll. Well, there's accessories that you can buy for the American Girl doll. My wife doesn't ask any questions. Like, she doesn't ask herself, I wonder if that will be available on Amazon. She just knows that the accessories will also be available there. So guess where she goes immediately? Straight back to the same place she bought the American Girl doll, and that provides more traffic. And then the guy who owns American Girl dolls goes, you know what? I can't stand Bezos. I hate Amazon. I'm not selling. I'm not doing it. I'm not going there. I'm not doing it on Amazon. And then what happens? He's got to be there. Right? He just has to be there. Once again, more sellers, which improves the selection, which is back at number 12. And you've kind of got this expanding clock. Okay, so that's fundamentally network effects. In a broad, we're talking Amazon. Are your clients Amazon? Most definitely not. Right. So Now you go, okay, but Karl, I'm a coach, I'm a consultant, I'm a digital marketer, whatever, right? I'm an accountant. Okay, so for the coach consultant, and this is all subjective, you might want to change the order for you, but I'd go 12, 3, 6, and 9. So 12 o'clock will be new clients, which is what you're looking to achieve, the same way that Amazon is looking for selection as their, like 12 o'clock is the main thing that you're trying to accomplish, right? So you've got new clients. At 3 o'clock, what would you have? Like you got a certain amount of time, you're only willing to work 50 hours a week. Okay, there's your available time. 6 o'clock is clients' wants and needs. You got to solve coaching is about solving problems and transforming folks, right? So again, client wants and needs. And then 9 o'clock would be customer experience, which is absolutely critical. The customer experience goes down, your business is going down. So what happens, the opposite of Amazon, where they create a flywheel, where they speed up and they expand. Okay, well, as a coach, your available time, once you get to, let's assume 20 clients is the most that you can handle. Once you get to 40, like when you go to 20 to 25 to 30, the client's wants and needs aren't looked after because they're asking questions and you just can't get back to them in a timely fashion. What happens to the customer experience? It goes down. So when you go to 20 to 25, your clock starts to turn in the wrong direction, counterclockwise, and it starts eating itself. So this is why so that's the problem. So what I go, hang on, my $500,000 coaches need a solution for that. What is it? And basically group coaching. Okay. So group coaching, it's the opposite dynamic where the more people you have in your group, the better the to and fro, the better the quality of the questions, the more testimonials, the more people interacting, the more confidence the coach gets, the more you elevate because you're learning more. Basically, what happens with group coaching is you'll end up with, the expanding effect where your clock expands and speeds up. And that's what, like we have you could imagine we've got 900 coaches. It took me X amount of time to get to 900 coaches, but I guarantee I'm going to go from 900 to 1800 in significantly faster fashion because of that. We now well and truly have network effects working in our favor, right? Like some of the top coaches in the world use, my software and our system and are clients of ours. So when my lower level clients have a question, they go into the Facebook group and ask a question. I don't even see it. And I go there and there's like 20 different answers to a great question that a new coach has. And there's 20 answers from my existing client base. That's an example of network effects working in your favor. When I had 20 people in my Facebook group, it was very boring. When I had 200 people in my Facebook group, it was a little better than boring, but still boring. Now that we have, 900 people in our Facebook group and a lot of quality and, crushing business coaches in the trenches that want to give back. See, my best clients are the folks that want to give back, right? Like again, so when you ask a question and they can provide you some value, they want to do it, right? They're not like, you know what I mean? Like they're just, they're sitting in front of the TV and then they flip through their Facebook, feed and they see this. They're like, oh yeah, I can help this person. Boom, boom, boom. Anyway, so that would be Road Dog, an example of network effects. Again, I could go significantly deeper, something I encourage you to understand. But if you legitimately want to hit $1 million with your business coaching company, this is you talk about good questions. You need to be thinking about how you're going to get network effects working in your favor. And the way that I got there, and, I'm asking a good question. I got lots of coaches doing, 250 to 500 grand. They're trying to get to $1 million. They're asking me how to get to $1 million. Well, I am creating software and solutions for that. So anyways, Road Dog, I hope that, what do you think? Network effects, did I do a good job? Anything you'd add there?
Yeah. So let's take this over to the stock market then. Like, do you see it taking a hit?
Stock market. Okay. Slippery slope. Look, the S&P 500, if you really look at it, is the S&P 7, right? As in the five, like the index is the 500 top companies in the world all thrown together. And if you're 499 and then you have a bad quarter, you suck, you fall out and then another company comes in. So it's the 500 top performing companies in the world at all times. When you really look at it, and by the way, I hadn't really looked at it I hadn't looked at it in this manner, but like it's really propped up by the big seven. 7 companies represent a whopping 40% of the stock market right now, which is at a record high as we speak, right? So those 7, what are they? They're conveniently pretty much all tech, Amazon, Apple, Facebook, Tesla, Microsoft, they say Netflix. Anyway, there's 7 of them, right? I'm pretty sure that I just nailed it, but those are the ones that are there. So you see this big stimulus check, right? Obviously, we're in a pandemic, stimulus checks left, right, and center, and that's happening. Like, are they making a big impact on the economy? And there's a good question, right? Well, because it's going to what I'll call precautionary spending. Like it's not going to velocity, right? They're going into savings, as in they're getting tucked away for a rainy day, or they're going towards paying off credit card debt, paying off the car, paying for previous purchases, previous velocity, we'll call it, right? So people aren't traveling and spending freely. So you go, okay, velocity. This is when you buy a car and the salesman gets a commission and then takes the commission and goes and buys dinner. And then when he buys dinner, he gives the waiter a fat tip because he just got a big commission. And then that waiter takes that tip and he takes his girlfriend or his wife or his family to the movies, and then around and around it goes. No doubt you could see that, right? Well, when you take this spending, and let's just say it's $1 trillion. When you take $1 trillion and you multiply it by 0 velocity, what do you get? 0. Right? Like, because it's not consumption. So you really want, and it's important that I think as a business coach, this is so relevant because you gotta understand the macro and the bigger picture in order to really function at the highest level. And I gotta assume that you don't want to be an average business coach. You want to be a 7-figure and well above business coach. So you need people, we need people in order to achieve velocity, buying new TVs, buying new fridges, buying new cars, going out to dinner. It's like, everybody's talking about, I heard this pent up demands, right? No, if you didn't go out for dinner for 3 months and you missed, let's say, 15 dinners, you don't go and order 15 dinners at the next outing with your wife or your family or your husband or whatever, right? Like that's not the way it works. Not pent up demands. Like traveling, you don't go on 3 holidays. You just eventually go on that next holiday, right? So it's velocity. It's that like a neighbor of mine plays in the NHL. For every $1 million that you hear that he makes X, right? Like X amount of millions. For every million, take 333 and land that in his bank account, and that's fundamentally what sticks, right? A huge chunk goes to taxes, but there's trainers, there's agents, there's minders that all get a slice, and on $1 million, it's again, it's a healthy one, right? So this creates velocity, right? So what I'm really trying to say, I guess, bring across, like when you say $1 trillion stimulus and, it doesn't prompt people to buy, it's not a good thing. And again, you take $1 trillion, you multiply it by 0 velocity and you end up with 0, right? So it's, the economy is not getting stimulated in the way that we ultimately would assume or want to. And then not to mention the bankers and the politicians and the funders lining their pockets like happened in 2008. Don't even get me started on that one. That should make you throw up in your mouth. Yes, it's happening, but whatever. So yes, I see the stock market taking a hit. And I've said this many a times, right? In many different, when I don't know, Warren Buffett doesn't know, Ray Dalio doesn't know. So do you know what I mean? I don't know. I'm not pretending to, but over the long haul, so that being said, importantly, I'd like to finish that with over the long haul, it's going to be just fine. It will continue to grow. It's a place to put some dough. Would I be putting a big chunk of change into the stock market right now? No. But there's a price to pay for shutting down. Small business represents 50% of employment. When you shut that down, there's a price to pay, and there will be a price to pay, but good. So don't let that freak you out. So here's the question. How do you benefit from the economy going sideways? How do you benefit when things slow down madly? I will tell you as a business coach, let's make sure I'm not being Debbie Downer here, because most certainly not. I'm giving you macro, what I believe to be macro advice. And I ain't pretending. I am not, guys. I don't have an economics degree. An economist will get on here and eat me for lunch, and I'm totally fine with that. But I tell you, I'm comfortable. That being said, I do my homework and I study, what I think are some of the, the best minds to follow. So this isn't me in here guessing. I think this is my advice, and I promise you, I always give you my best and stuff that I'm following in my own world, my own advice. But I don't want to be Debbie Downer is what I'm getting at. What I am saying here is that there will be more businesses started over the next, I'm going to say 3 years from, the date that we're doing this, there will be more business owners started than ever before. Business coaches that are operating the way that we teach and at a high level and not scared of the phone and hiding behind the computers are having a massive wins right now. Massive wins. So yeah, I just, I want to, what we're describing here, Road Dog, is the wave. We're out there surfing. When you understand the wave, when it's coming, when it's not coming, like Kelly Slater was world champion because he knew he would lie in the water for a period of time until the right wave was coming because he knew how to he knew how to read the ocean, right? Whereas I am a horrible surfer. And if anything comes that I feel like I can get some speed off of, I'm taking that wave, right? But all I want to do is stand up, do a couple turns, hit my head on the ground and, keep going. The economy, the stimulus, the pandemic, the after effects are kind of looking at the waves. So I think these things are very important for a business coach that's looking to crush it, Road Dog. So yeah, I think that the stock market's going to get a hit, but remember the richest people in the world were created during depressed times. So go make some money and go help some business owners do the same. And there you go.
You know what's interesting? You always talk about the difference between the size of 1 million and 1 billion, right?
Yeah.
Like how people we're almost numb to it, right? Like, oh, it's $1 billion. Just how significantly that is. Well, how about 1 billion to 1 trillion, right? Like it's insane.
Crazy.
It's just
okay. The difference. So those that haven't heard us talk about this, 1 million seconds is 11 days. 1 billion seconds is actually, let me just give you a second to process that. So 1 million seconds is 11 days. How long do you think 1 billion seconds is? Okay, I'll give you the answer. 32 years. So comparing 1 million to 1 billion, I'm sorry, right? Like, so when you hear that Facebook is, $100 billion company, I really want you to put that in context, right? It's unbelievable. But anyway, and then 1 trillion seconds. So if 1 billion seconds is 32 years, how long is 1 trillion seconds? I'll give you a second to think about it. Again, obviously it's going to be a whopping number. How big? 32,000 years. So when you hear trillion in a stimulus, right, I want you to understand the level. It's insanity. And it should be providing an unbelievable amount of velocity. But that's, not happening, and I ain't going down there, but politicians should be lined up and done something too. There you go, bud. That's my answer.
Okay. Listen, I'm going to apologize to everybody. I want to go this one question here. I really want to add this in, so we may go a couple minutes longer than normal right now, as long as Karl stays on script too.
Good.
The question is, how would you create a feedback loop for small events?
Ooh. Okay.
And maybe talk about feedback loop as well, real quick.
Yeah. Okay. So look, let's explain feedback loop, which is important, right? Hopefully you know what that is. You ever been to you ever tried to set up a microphone and then all of a sudden you got that really screaming, noise back at you through the microphone? There's a feedback loop, right? But like in business, I answered this quite a while ago. What did we say? So basically we got asked, actually it was Scott Hansen, who's a very long-term client of ours and a great guy. And he just asked, how do you go from X to X? For sake of the argument, I'm going to say 100, like how do you go from 100 grand to 500 grand? Those aren't the numbers that he asked, but I want to make it nice and simple, right? So how do you go from 100 grand to 500 grand? The answer is a feedback loop. Again, if you ask that question 100 times to 100 other experts, I don't think you'd ever hear the answer feedback loop, but that's mine. And what you're looking for here is like a hockey stick like curve. Like just picture your average, XY axis graph, and you want a hockey stick like turn, right? Like, so the answer is when you go from 100, so don't go from 100 to 500, let's go from 100 to 200. What does the average business coach do? They go from 100 to 200, start thinking they're a big shot. They buy a BMW and start, they take the 100 grand and they start, flying first class, right? If you want to go from 100 to 500, you need a feedback loop. So what you do is you pretend like you're still making only 100. You don't buy a BMW. You don't start, you start looking after your company instead of looking after yourself and your own ego. And what you do is you take the extra 100 grand and you feed it back into your company. How do you do that? start buying some advertising, accepting that you're not going to get it right in the first ad. You hire an employee. I always talk about hiring somebody. You got to build a team. Hire a telemarketer as an example, somebody on the phone. Hire a coach to do the coaching, and then you do the business development, which is what I always did. I very quickly moved. When I say quickly, I did plenty of coaching and, plenty of coaching, but I wasn't a good coach. You're listening to this, you're probably a better coach than I am. I'm like the pit bull. I want to see things done. I want everybody to operate at my level. And believe me, that's, not my level. I take that back. My speed, my effort, again, I'll wake up at 4:00 in the morning and I don't pass go. I come straight to work. Do I have to? I want to, right? It's what I do. Anyway, so I hope you understand what I mean by that, right? So hire a coach to come in and do the coaching, and then you do the business development, right? Or take some time to step back and build a program and start thinking about network effects and how you can get that into it, right? So your ego basically eats your feedback loop. Don't let it happen. So how do I feed? So the question is so that's a feedback loop. Okay. So you take the money and then you process it back into the system, and instead of allowing your ego to bring you to start buying all the fancy stuff, right? So live events, it works the same. So let's say you did a live event, and for the sake of the argument, it cost you $2,000 to run it. Okay. So when you were done, let's assume that you made $5,000 for real simple math. Okay. Well, what do you got? $3,000 there of profit. I want you to think about feeding, unless you got to live off some of the $3,000, that's fine, but only live. Don't buy the BMW. Take the $3,000 and feed it back into the system. How would you do that? Start buying ads to generate leads for your next event, fully accepting that you're probably going to light the money on fire, but you got to improve, right? Remember, don't practice to practice to improve is what my poor 7-year-old daughter, I push her to do. She's in, gymnastics and parkour. I'm like, don't practice to practice, baby. Like, you did 7 seconds, so our goal is 8 seconds. That's why we're practicing. We're not practicing just for the fun of it. And then now some moms and dads are like, oh my gosh, he's pushing his daughter too hard. I'm not, believe me, I very careful care of not pushing too much on my daughter. But that being said, I also expect my daughter to be elite at what she chooses to be elite at. So I want to give her a foundation, or that's my opinion, right? So there you go. Bottom line is, when you buy those ads, I don't want you to practice to practice. I want you to practice to improve, or you're going to hire a telemarketer to pick up the phone and start making calls, right? And that person is going to help communicate with past attendees so you don't drop the ball, right? Also make calls for future events, right? You could see how if you hired somebody and you're willing to spend a good portion of that, like hire somebody for 30 days for the $3,000, right? So, use it maybe to even make I always talk about your events. The missing piece of the events that I have been to is entertainment, right? You got to be fun. When I come, they want to be educated, but they'd rather be entertained. So maybe you could, hire a modeling company to do the registrations and that sort of stuff. The reality is, good looking people in your venue create a different dynamic. You just like it, hate it, I don't care. This is reality. Okay. So just deal with it. But if you don't want to do that, don't do that. But hire a better venue. That's going to up your entertainment level. Hire a videographer to rip around the room and to video you so you could leverage the content, but it also makes you look more impressive. Buy better food, a better venue, whatever. That's where I'd be spending the money, right? And at a minimum, after the event, you have to sit down immediately. You got to go through what just happened. I want you to reverse engineer all of your activities. And I want you to think about how, this worked, that didn't work. How did you do whatever? Who did and didn't come? Go over your script, go over your jokes, which one landed, which ones didn't. Go over your stories, which ones landed, which ones didn't. Go over your examples, which ones were really powerful and which ones weren't, and practice them and look to make them better. If you take time to do that instead of generating leads for your coaching company, in my opinion, that is you working on your business instead of in it, right? Like Road Dog, you said earlier, who do you need to become in order to X, Y, Z? In order to do an event that brings in $200,000 instead of $5,000, what kind of person do you need to be? What kind of coach do you need to be? What kind of results do you need to have? What sort of room do you have to have in order for that to happen, right? Could you imagine Tony Robbins? He does Madison Square Gardens. On day 2, he sells his $10,000 Tony Robbins University. And then the night of day 2, he sells his $100,000 platinum partnership. Imagine the numbers that he is doing, right? Push yourself, right? Like, what kind of person do you need to become in order to get to that level, right? And then you might say, well, I don't want to get to that level. That's fine. Well, which level do you want to get to? And it should be predicated on the people, not on you, but the people that you plan on influencing, right? So anyway, and then again, your next event, you're going to take it from 2 to, let's not Tony Robbins, forget I said that, because that might be, let's face it, if you're doing local live events with 10 people, you're nowhere near Tony Robbins. That's the other mountain that I described earlier, where you are here. You're trying to establish where you're at this mountain you've never been to. You don't want your goal to land you on the other mountain. It's good to have a big vision, but you got to make sure you got a granular set of questions to basically get you there, right? So bottom line, if you want to go from 100 to 500 grand, the average coach, and I'm going to say 95%, it's ego that will stop it, right? So the first class, living like a big shot, buying the house before you can afford the house, buying, the Mercedes before you can afford the Mercedes, et cetera. And all that being said, every individual is different. So maybe buying that Mercedes is something you always dreamed of, and that's what's going to help you wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning versus the opposite. But I would challenge that. Make your company a big deal versus make, you a big deal. So anyways, Road Dog, yeah, that's a good question. Interesting one. So a feedback loop for local small business events. A feedback loop is a feedback loop. Just make sure that you're feeding back information. Like, you've got inputs, you've got the event, you've got outputs. Okay. So just think of that as a 3-step process. And you got to feed the outputs back into the inputs. And that will ultimately get you. I started that with what you're looking for is a hockey stick looking graph. Okay. I want you to think of compound interest. Remember, if you double a penny every day for 30 days, it's over 5 million on day 30. But on day 25, it's not very exciting. Day 24, it's not very exciting at all. You get massive impact in compounding in the last 5 or so days. Okay. When you do your events, your first, second, and third events are not going to be exciting. I've filled and done over 400, in fact, it might be much more than that. I don't even know, but I've filled and done 400 local live events. I promise you. Well, Road Dog, last time you and I did a local live event, got 100% conversion. That's not 100% conversion to appointment. That's 100% conversion to high-end coaching client. But there weren't 200 people in the room. It was a very small, tight-knit group that I described earlier. I think there were 12 people. There were 7 buying units in the room. Every one of them bought. So, but that's my 400th, right? I've got that hockey stick like curve where now I've reversed engineered and I've done my close and I've done my opening and I know my jokes and I know how to, throw some charisma around without being a jackass too. That's important. Don't make out like you're not, you're there to, the entertainment needs to be in context. Maybe that's also relevant, right? I'm not trying to be a jerk off and not also trying to talk about how big and great and everything else. It's the opposite. You got to make fun of yourself. That's part of the magic. So, there you go, Road Dog. Feedback loop. Great question. A feedback loop is a feedback loop, and I would encourage folks to be thinking about it. And I think that's a great question.
And if you can't make fun of yourself, just give me a call. I'll be more than happy to do it for you. All right. Real quick, what's the one thing, just to close out, that people can actually take from today's podcast and implement to their business today?
I want to go to your question, which is just, again, what's the level of, what was it, the question that you're asking yourself? Really, again, reverse engineer your own thoughts and don't worry about, oh my gosh, don't beat yourself up. That's not the exercise we're looking for. What are the questions? So picture your bigger vision and then granular. So you got macro, micro, let's go, right? Talk about economics today. You go macro question, like the pie. What are you looking to achieve? You want to educate local business owners because they don't understand that high ticket is a lot less exciting than recurring revenue, right? They think that the 4-hour work week is the goal, when in actuality, the 4-hour work week, it's not happening for Road Dog. It's not happening for me. It ain't happening for you. It didn't work for Bill Gates. Jeff Bezos isn't running around working 4 hours a week, right? It's a great book and everybody should read it. But when you really read it, you see it's about lifestyle. It's not about how you can work 4 hours a week. Because if you work 4 hours a week, you're going to accomplish very little. And then, of course, somebody thinks of the anomaly and, oh, but my buddy, whatever. The other name is just stop it. It's just, you have to just, be realistic here. Local business owners don't realize, they don't know that, like, again, Profit Jumpstart 12, the 12 key areas where if I were to work with somebody and I had to not only find them $100,000, but I had to put $100,000 into their bank account, where would I go? Well, I got to tell you, I know there's 12 specific areas that with 100% certainty, I would go immediately, like upsell, downsell, cross-sell, proper upfront offer. I would put those things in place, and those are the 12 that are part of the software. So that's like bigger picture thinking, and then granular, tight, simple, questions to basically get yourself there. So if you think local business, you think like me, local business owners have got no clue. They're following the wrong roadmap. They're falling to the sexy, delusional titles of the books, like The Secret, right? Like, think really positively and magical things will happen. Think negatively and actually do something, and you'd be way better off, right? But do both. Think super positively and work your butt off, and guess what? Really good things will happen. So anyways, that's, what are the questions? What's the quality of the questions? A, what questions are you asking yourself? And then B, really look at it and go, hang on, am I asking myself, micro type questions like, how am I going to get a client, today, tomorrow, or this week? When you could be thinking so much bigger, and not too big that you're jumping mountains, but so much bigger, and really getting your result. Instead of getting one client this week, you end up getting, 8 over the next 30 days, because you're thinking bigger, you're growing the pie, you're following Jake Burton and, growing snowboarding instead of trying to sell a few snowboards. So there you go, Road Dog. That's what I'd say, bud.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Well, thanks everybody for tuning into another great episode of Business Coaching Secrets with the man on top of the hill, my boy King Karl. If you're not on the inside and getting access to the pre-show, or you aren't getting Karl's daily emails, or you just want more information on how to build your coaching business, visit focused.com. And if you enjoyed this podcast, please share with a fellow coach or someone that you think might make a great coach. And of course, as always, we'd appreciate if you'd rate this episode, as we know that iTunes, Spotify, and everybody like that give an insane amount of weight towards reviews. So please leave us a review if you like what you heard. And that's it for yet another week. Make it a good week, everybody. And remember, progress equals happiness. Take care, everybody.
Karl Bryan built Profit Acceleration Software 2.0 to train business coaches how to find any small business owner more than $100,000 in 45 minutes without them spending an extra dollar on marketing or advertising. This becomes a business coach's superpower. So as a business coach, you'll never again have to worry about working with business owners that can't afford your high-end coaching fees. Check us out at focused.com.